Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. It's been a week of anniversaries in Quebec, and not the joyous kind. It's been 1 year since Joyce Echaquan died, and 1 year since the Assembly of First Nations of Quebec and Labrador tabled a plan to fight the behavior that Joyce was subjected to. The AFNQL held a status update on their action plan in Montreal today. Lindsay Richardson was there.
Aujourd'hui, on est en quelque sorte un pont entre deux dates marquantes.
Ghislain Picard says this announcement bridges two important days. Yesterday's commemoration of Joyce Echaquan's death in Joliette, and tomorrow, the first national holiday for Truth and Reconciliation. In between both came an update on the Assembly of First Nations Quebec Labrador's anti-racism action plan.
It just gives us more energy. That what we attempted to achieve over the last year, we need to stay the course.
The AFNQL's action plan was tabled in 2020 after leaders called out Quebec for stalling in their response to several public commissions. Since then, Quebec's invested hundreds of millions of dollars in healthcare reform, but leaders are still skeptical.
Because how can you say that you will change things when you don't recognize the problems?
The Quebec government still hasn't acknowledged the concept of systemic racism. Nearly half of respondents in a recent survey commissioned by the AFNQL say they feel the Legault government is lagging on reconciliation. So the AFNQL is now appealing to the public, Indigenous or not, to push the matter further.
C'est ça la réconciliation. Il faut commencer par soi. Puis c'est important. Je m'engage à me faire du bien. Je m'engage à pratiquer ma culture, mes cérémonies, sans avoir honte, sans avoir peur. C'est ça la réconciliation. Il faut s'engager avec soi-même.
Meanwhile, the AFNQL is asking Quebecers to come out and march for Truth and Reconciliation to mark the national holiday, even though Quebec won't observe it.
Does that mean that any impacts from racism, discrimination affects the rest of the world, but not Quebec? I find that hard to believe.
The AFNQL will soon launch a website and an awareness campaign to encourage Quebecers to work through their action plan, step by step. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
First Nations child advocates are celebrating yet another legal victory. They remain undefeated following an ongoing court battle over systemic discrimination. Earlier today, the federal court in Ottawa dismissed two challenges launched by the Justice Department against the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. Judge Paul Favel upheld an order that requires Ottawa to pay compensation to victims of the First Nations child welfare system. Favel also upheld a separate order allowing non-status kids to access Jordan's principal. Cindy Blackstock launched the case back in 2007. She urges Ottawa to stop with the appeals and fighting kids in court. Well, for more on that and to read that whole decision, you can head to our website, aptnnews.ca. Well, big political moves in the Métis Nation over the past 24 hours. The Manitoba Métis Federation has left the Métis National Council. That move came just hours before a court-ordered special General Assembly of the National Council. It's the latest in political turmoil within the embattled MNC. In 2018, the Métis Nation of Ontario was put on probation over concerns with who it was giving membership to. Earlier this year, the MNC launched legal challenges against the MNC and longtime President Clément Chartier, which culminated with today's assembly. Chartier provided a short speech this morning and then left the assembly after the Manitoba Métis Federation announced that they were going to be leaving the organization. The selection committee of a new Métis National Council president is expected on Thursday. A resolution was also passed today that puts in place a 12-month review process in Ontario and suspending the 2018 probation until that review is complete. Lots of moving parts to that, and we will have more on that story as it develops. Lots of fallouts today, for sure. Well, a small Nunavut community has had its first case of COVID-19, and it's one of the communities with the lowest vaccination rates in the territory. That's without considering all the people under age 12 who live there. And in Nunavut, that number is always high. Coral Harbour is a community of nearly 900 people located on Southampton Island. Today, a positive COVID-19 case was announced in the community, leading to limitations on gatherings and interactions within the community. 61% of the people over 12 in that community have had their first shot of COVID-19 vaccines, but only 53% have had a second shot. Well, dozens of Yukoners have died of drug overdoses in the last 5 years, and that's prompted the Territory to open its first supervised consumption site. Sarah Connors gives us an inside look at how the new facility will operate.
Here we have our emergency response supplies. So we have oxygen, naloxone, bag valve masks, an AED, first aid kit.
It's a bit bare bones at the moment, but in the coming days, this space will be saving lives.
I'm really proud to be here today to show this site and the accomplishment it is for our community.
This building is the Yukon's first supervised consumption site in Whitehorse, the first facility of its kind in the Northern Territories. It will open to the public on Wednesday, providing drug users with a safe, clean environment to use pre-obtained drugs in the presence of trained staff free from the fear of arrest, as well as connect them with other supports like wound care, withdrawal services, and housing.
Our goal is clear: to reduce overdose deaths and to be able to connect people who use drugs to additional supportive services that they may need.
This is an extremely important step as we move forward to end the overdose crisis.
Bronte Renwick-Shields is the executive director for Blood Ties, a Whitehorse harm reduction organization which will operate the site. She says the facility is desperately needed to aid in the Territory's overdose crisis, which has claimed the lives of 57 Yukoners since 2016.
There are 37 supervised consumption sites currently offering services, and to date, no fatal overdoses have occurred at any of those sites.
People will be guided to a booth. The red bins that you see are for the disposal of used equipment, so people will be...
For now, the facility has limited staff and can only accommodate up to 3 people at a time. Upon entering, clients will be asked to provide a code name. They'll then be taken to these booths where they're provided with clean equipment, while a healthcare professional sits nearby. Afterwards, they'll be asked to wait in this chill-out area for 30 minutes where they can be monitored for signs of overdose.
Because we want to encourage people to hang out here, we've got a computer, a TV where we can play some Planet Earth, some snacks, coffee, tea, as well as some games.
Approved methods of consumption currently include oral ingestion, snorting, and injection. Eventually, the site will include inhalation. Renwick-Shields says it's a major step in ending the overdose crisis.
We know that supervised consumption has saved many lives and will continue to save lives, and that they are an extremely important part of ending overdose death.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
We need to take a break, but when we come back, Chuck one up for the Fairy Creek protesters. A judge quashes the injunction that's against them.
It's a right, a civil right that we have, that the RCMP have violated our rights in many cases.
Plus, there's more trouble brewing at the headwaters of the Maurice River in Wet'suwet'en Territory.
The bus has been retaken, and we're here on the INTA making sure that this area is safe for our future generations.
Welcome back. A BC judge is allowing an injunction against blockades towards a logging company to expire today. Teal Jones was looking to extend their injunction in Fairy Creek for another year. This is a win for the group behind the old growth blockades. The BC Supreme Court today ruled Tuesday to not extend Teal Jones' injunction. The judge acknowledges it would cause serious harm to the company's interests, but stated the court's reputation was hurt in the way the injunction had been enforced, pointing out that there was a police command to have frontline officers remove their identification. He added enforcement methods have led to substantial infringements of civil rights, including freedom of the press.
Extraordinary news for all concerned, because what it says is that we have a legitimate right to be in that area, that we have a legitimate right to carry out nonviolent civil disobedience. It's a right, a civil right that we have, that the RCMP have violated our rights in many cases.
And there is another blockade in Wet'suwet'en territory, this time to stop Coastal GasLink from drilling at the headwaters near Houston, BC. And tensions continue to build as the natural gas pipeline moves forward. APTN's Lee Wilson has more.
Gidimt'en access point erected new blockades on the Maurice West Forest Service Road. They say the blockades are to stop Coastal GasLink from drilling on the Whitehorse River or Maurice River. Coastal GasLink is the pipeline builder for the 670-kilometer natural gas pipeline that runs from northern BC to an LNG Canada facility in Kitimat. According to a media release from the Gidimt'en access point, they say that drilling at the headwaters that supply their lands will be disastrous for their people and salmon.
This is the fight of our lives. We have so much at stake here. Drilling under Wet'suwet'en would absolutely devastate everything that is important to us.
The Wet'suwet'en dispute over the pipeline led to protests across Canada in 2020. The Coastal GasLink pipeline has consent of 20 elected First Nation bands along the route of northern BC, but the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs remain opposed. The hereditary chiefs, along with the Gitxsan, successfully argued their title exists in the Delgamuukw Supreme Court case of Canada, which concluded in 1997. Both Gidimt'en and Unistoten land reoccupation locations have remained active through the pandemic. The pipeline project work and pipeline building continued. According to the company's September report, over one-third of the construction has been completed. Coastal GasLink released a statement on the drilling in Wet'suwet'en territory. The clearing is now complete, and our crews will utilize a microtunnel method, which is a type of trenchless crossing that is constructed well below the riverbed and does not disturb the stream or the bed and the banks of the river. Coastal GasLink's activities are permitted, and in order to safely conduct our work, an enforceable injunction is in place that prohibits interference with our construction activities, including those within the vicinity of the Maurice River. Last week, in a social media video, Gidimt'en Access Point spokesperson, Slato, confronted a CGL archaeology team and their security workers over work being done on what they describe as a historic site. The Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs say they did not give consent for that work to complete.
Currently, the bus has been retaken, and we're here on the INTA making sure that this area is safe for our future generations.
The Gidimt'en say there is an increased police presence on the logging road. There is now a call out on social media for supporters of the Wet'suwet'en to join the new blockades. Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Kitimat.
Well, and on that note, there's a new report that suggests that companies might not be honest with potential investors when it comes to disclosing Indigenous opposition to resource extraction on their homelands. Joining me now to discuss is Dana Nadine Scott. She's an associate professor at Osgoode Hall Law School and the Faculty of Environmental and Urban Change. Dana, thank you so much for joining us. You know, our audience is likely not shocked to hear that some companies might not be exploring opposition to logging or mines or dams or pipelines, and even if they are exploring that opposition, maybe they're not disclosing it or they're downplaying it to investors. Can you tell us why you folks wanted to take a closer look at what's going on?
Sure. We had some familiarity with the Ring of Fire region and the controversy around it. And in particular, what we were seeing and looking at mainly the environmental assessment processes and how they were playing out there was that there was quite a lot of both Indigenous opposition, but also a lot of movement in the situation. And, you know, because the students are interested in learning about securities law when they're at law school, and there's a lot of talk about environmental, social, and governance factors and how those are, you know, coming into play, gaining much more significance with companies. The students were interested in taking a look at how that was playing out in this particular context. And we were surprised to see that, you know, over the period of disclosures that we looked at, the boilerplate language about the potential for Indigenous claims to influence the projects was very stable, right? It was just kind of boilerplate. It was the same over that period. And what we were seeing on the ground was actually that things were pretty volatile and things were shifting, and First Nations were making very specific claims about their opposition. to the projects, and none of that was mentioned in the disclosures.
You know, is there something that should be happening to remedy this so that nobody's surprised when there's opposition to logging or to mining or to a pipeline? Like, what should be happening to, I guess, you know, consider Indigenous interests, but also to protect investors too, who might be looking, going, well, we had no idea that this is where we sank our money.
Yeah. Well, I think ideally we would have regulators that would be enforcing those obligations to disclose. We're going to also need probably courts to interpret what we mean when we say a material fact or a material change, and you know what's required in those disclosures, because I think you know the public's expectation is moving on that, and people expect to be able to understand what is the situation on the ground, and I think it's, you know, it can be hard to understand from a distance.
Well, and I think I was going to say that too. You know, we're now at a point in time where Canadians are finally looking at reconciliation. You know, how is this going to compute when we look down the path to reconciliation, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it can be really hard, and it's hard in this situation because there are First Nations on both sides of these projects, right? And that is what we're seeing in a lot of these controversies across the country. And so, you know, as we were saying, from the outside, it can be really difficult for people to understand and make sense of that. But I think it's also, you know, clear that investors want to know whether or not there are First Nations or other Indigenous organizations that are on side with the project, that people also want to know if there's opposition, right? And so that's in part what we objected to, this kind of like cherry picking of the communities that you're willing to mention in the disclosures. You talk about those that are on side with your project, but you don't talk about those that are not. And that's just not the full story. That's the point we're trying to make.
Well, point taken, and we thank you for taking the time to share this with us. It's certainly well-timed as we're all thinking about reconciliation today. This is going to be an important factor in that as Canada moves forward, for sure.
Thanks for having me.
Time for another break, but coming up, we've got a new song from Tom Jackson just in time for Truth and Reconciliation Day. You're going to want to hear that. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Deanna Spidell sent us this photo of her granddaughter, her daughter, herself, and her mother. That's 4 generations showing their support for Truth and Reconciliation Day. They're from the Sapatawiak Cree Nation. Carolyn Kimach, the great-grandma here, she is a residential school survivor. Send us your photos of events that you take tomorrow. You can email them to share@aptn.ca. We would love to share them with our audience. Well, now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting off on the east coast, 12 and showers for Fredericton, 15 in St. John's and rain there. Kuujjuaq, mix of sun and cloud, and 6 degrees 9 and sunny for Inukjuak. Chibougamau, 15 and rain. St. Jovite, 16 and sunshine. Ottawa with a mix of sun and cloud and 16 degrees. London, 19 and sunshine. Kapuskasing and Timmins, both a mix of sun and cloud and 13. Sioux Lookout, 24 and sunshine. Puckatawagan, 17 and a chance of showers. 27 in Norway House. 22 with a mix of sun and cloud in Winnipeg, Barons River, 22 in sunshine. 23 and sunny in Yorkton, 22 in Regina and Saskatoon and sunny there. 16 in showers for L'Orange, Uranium City, sunshine and 15. Peace River, 18 and a chance of showers. Fort Chip, sunshine and 15. Medicine Hat, 24 and sunny. Red Deer, 21 with a mix of sun and cloud. 18 in showers for Kamloops, Quesnel, 17 with a chance of showers there. Prince George, 15 in showers. Dease Lake, 7 and rain there too. Beaver Creek, sunshine and 3. Rock River, -3, a chance of flurries. 5 and sunny for Norman Wells. Wati, 8 with a mix of sun and cloud. Colville Lake, 2 and cloudy. Fort McPherson, -1 and cloud there too. New Yacht, cloud, 3 degrees. Arviat, 12 and cloudy. Pangerton, sunshine and 3 degrees. Kenite, 4 and sunny. With Truth and Reconciliation Day tomorrow, demand for orange shirts has been massive. One Indigenous clothing store in Winnipeg has seen a spike in their customers looking to buy one. Indigenous Nations Apparel Company, or INAC, as it's cleverly called, has been selling orange shirts for months. Recent demand, however, has seen business spike, and lineups to buy a shirt have been so long, some people have waited in line for an hour. Store owner Michelle Cameron is from Peguis First Nation, and her mother and aunts and uncles are all residential school survivors. Many of the customers are non-Indigenous people, which Cameron says is encouraging to see.
I love seeing people come into the store, you know, whether it be an Indigenous person or a non-Indigenous person. It's like it's an ally to us, and it's a person that has heard our story and heard the story of the residential school survivors. So when they want to show their support, and I think it really plays a big part in reconciliation that people are actually seeking out an Indigenous printer, an Indigenous business to buy their orange shirt from, which is really important.
A new song from singer, actor, and activist Tom Jackson is well-timed for Truth and Reconciliation Day and was inspired by the discovery of those unmarked graves, 215 children at the former residential school site in Kamloops.
Now you want my soul, it's tearing me apart. Where do lost souls go?
Jackson's new music video is called Lost Souls. He wrote it after hearing about the graves discovered at former residential school sites this past summer, and of course the atrocities that are suffered by children who were forced into that system. Jackson, whose mother is herself a survivor, hopes that people will listen and will reflect, and says part of it is his personal reconciliation was writing this song.
It gave me the opportunity to actually do something, which reflects again and echoes the idea that we're going to do something now. We know the truth, and we know that getting through reconciliation may be somewhat painful, but we've got the truth now. You can't go to the next step until you get that. And that's where we're at.
In Alberta, the Day for Truth and Reconciliation isn't a statutory holiday, but nonetheless, events will be taking place across the province. The City of Calgary will be holding an outdoor ceremony that will include elders and traditional performers. In Edmonton, the Bent Arrow Traditional Healing Society is going to share survivor stories. That event will be live streamed on social media due to COVID-19. Lloyd Yellowbird with Bent Arrow says even though the province isn't recognizing September 30th as a stat holiday, it's important for youth to take part.
Our younger generation, the ones that are, being a part of this and hearing it, they're the ones that are really going to be our voice, I believe, going forward. That generation will really speak up for us. And so, we'll just keep doing what we do. And I'm not going to worry if Alberta is not recognizing it or not, but I know that the Bent Arrow and a lot of communities in Alberta are.
APTN has a powerful slate of programming for you tomorrow, beginning at 6 a.m. with a sunrise ceremony. There's more movies, documentaries, incredible ones throughout the day. APTN National News will be covering events across the country, and at 8 p.m. we will broadcast live the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, so be sure to tune in to all of that all day, and we encourage you to share this with your non-Indigenous friends who might be wondering what they should do tomorrow. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night.